More than 3/4 of renters in public housing say they'd prefer to live in a smoke-free apartment building. The American Lung Association surveyed 563 randomly selected renters in Lake, St. Louis, and Carlton counties last year. Today, representatives of the association and Duluth Mayor Don Ness urged public housing landlords to administer smoke-free policies.
And I first want to thank the Office of Housing and Urban Development, or commonly known as HUD, for their recent memo related to non-smoking policies in public housing. HUD serves approximately 1.2 million Americans that live in public housing, including 39% of which are children and 15% of which are elderly. In this announcement, HUD strongly encouraged public housing authorities to implement non-smoking policies in some or all of their housing units, stating, secondhand smoke can migrate between units in multifamily housing, causing respiratory illness, heart disease, cancer, and other adverse health effects in neighboring families. In Minnesota, 24 housing authorities have already adopted smoke-free policies, including the Carlton Public Housing Authority that really was one of the leaders in passing their policy in 2003. And the Two Harbors Public Housing Authority that will implement their new policy this fall, October 2009. The ALA did a survey last fall in September of approximately 560 renters in our region, and the results of our survey support this announcement from HUD. 78% of respondents said they would choose to live in a smoke-free apartment rather than a place that allows smoking, and this was across all demographics, income, age, and gender. And ironically, or I guess supportedly, those people that disproportionately affected by tobacco, those in low income brackets, said they supported as strongly and a little stronger than the average of our survey. Our survey also supported what HUD has alluded to, that people in these public housing homes suffer from heart and lung disease. And in our survey in our region, approximately 3 out of 10, or 30% of people living in multi-unit housing report they have a heart condition or lung disease. Over 50% said yes, indeed, they noticed smoke drifting into their units from adjoining apartments. And one of the strongest messages, I haven't seen a poll number of 93% for a long time, but 93% of our respondents agreed that a landlord should be required to tell the potential renter if an apartment allows smoking, or what we are calling a disclosure clause. This is a win-win on many levels. We've done educational sessions in our region, in multi-unit buildings, and many of the smokers at any given time, the 19% of our population that currently uses tobacco, are trying to quit. 50% of those folks are trying to quit. And current smokers say they struggle with quitting and that smoke-free environments support their quitting. Minnesota offers free services to everyone, including telephone counseling, face-to-face counseling, and nicotine replacement products.
Thank you. Our primary mission is to assist both landlords and tenants with any kind of problems and issues that they have. And it can range from evictions to neighborhood disputes, but what our office has noticed is an increasing number of folks calling us, having conversation, having issues, wanting to get out of their leases because they are having such significant problems with secondhand smoke traveling underneath their doors, traveling in between the vents if it's an older duplex or an older home. And I also had landlords calling me, asking me if is it legal to make my apartment smoke-free? Is it illegal to make my building smoke-free? How does that affect my current tenants that are under a lease clause? And so I've had to navigate waters that I've never had to navigate before because we've never had this kind of issue come up. And I can honestly tell you over the course of the last year, it's gone to maybe 1 or 2 phone calls a month to probably about 5 or 6 a month now. And I can only see that trend increasing. So I think this is a really positive step for everybody's safety, for everybody's health, and for giving everybody lots of choices about where they could choose to live.
I'm excited about the announcement by HUD that they are moving this forward on a national basis. And I think it's a positive development, and provides a great opportunity. You know, as a homeowner, a person can decide whether or not they make the place that they live a smoking home or not. And oftentimes those that live in multifamily units or public housing don't have that option because their neighbors smoke, and that smoke does permeate between units. And so in my mind, this is a question about giving those residents the ability to choose to live in a non-smoking environment, whether they smoke or not. The actions of their neighbors will affect that. And I think the other part of this, which is kind of on the stewardship of public resources, when you have a great deal of smoking in a public building, you are putting that asset at risk. The damage that occurs from smoking over time to the building itself, the increased risk of fires, those are very real, and these are public tax dollars that are used to support these public housing units. And if we can either discourage or limit the amount of smoking that happens in our public facilities, I think that it makes good sense for protecting public tax dollars.
So where are the most troubled areas for the smoking problem, and are those the areas you're focusing on?
I guess when folks are calling my office, they're really not identifying where they are living. They're just identifying that they have an issue. And so most recently, a young lady I spoke to at great length about 2 weeks ago, her son has asthma. She lives in an older duplex. It was a single home at one point, so it's been converted, but quite often the piping is not. And so the downstairs neighbors were pretty heavy smokers, and the smoke was drifting up, and it was causing problems with her son. And she was hoping for some assistance in getting out of her lease so she could find a place that was more habitable for her and her child. Quite often that's how it goes. We don't usually get identifiable properties.
Serious health threat.
I think it's fair to say that those that are in public housing often feel like they don't have choices, or that they don't even have necessarily rights. The ability to stand up and say, you know, this is my living environment, and I should have certain expectations of how I live in this space. And so the announcement by HUD, I think, is an empowering one to those residents to say, you know, we should have the right to be able to live in a smoke-free environment.
I'd like to piggyback on that statement a little bit. I think it also empowers private landlords. Once they see a large government entity taking this step and encouraging this policy, it only helps them make that same decision for their own properties. And I think that's really important.
And we want to be very clear, there is legal precedence that this is not a protected right, that you can include in a lease that it is a smoke-free environment. I think there has been ongoing confusion of whether that was a protected behavior or not, and it is not. So it has to do with health. And for HUD to come out with this statement, indeed, is a very strong statement towards that is the future.
For those who choose to smoke still and they can't smoke in their homes, where do you believe they'll go, and where do you suggest they go to smoke?
Well, the Lung Association has been working with property owners for actually several years, and HRAs in our region to discuss where does that look like? Where are they going to set a designated smoking area or not on the property, so that it is respectful and that it's a place that smokers feel safe to go to have a cigarette, and addresses that issue. And it varies from location to location. Some have a obvious decision of where it's going to be. Others work together with residents and decide how that's going to be and what it's going to look. We are restricted by the Freedom to Breathe Act. You can't build a shack or any kind of a building that has more than 50% enclosed. So there are limitations of what any kind of enclosure would look like. And that's really a good dialogue with both management and tenants about what that needs to look like.
24 housing authorities in Minnesota have already gone smoke-free. I'm Rob Carwath reporting for the Duluth News Tribune and Fox 21 News.